ignoring it, agreeing on 9,500 can feel like a loss, though it's better than nothing. Typically though, vintage cars are going to go up in value and not undersell for what they were worth brand new. 10,000 by the way. The interior would receive about 15 grand worth of work to bring it to showroom shape, so it's almost 25,000 already dropped on the piece. By the end though, they were left with a car valued at around 35 grand, and with the right buyer, it could reach up to even 70 grand, believe it or not. So even though the seller couldn't shove out an extra 15K, he didn't achieve its full value, which is unfortunate, and was left with an assumed $4,000 to $5,000 loss.
It was printed in 1484, one of the oldest printed books.
Just what we need, Rick, another old book.
Number 1, a book of Isaac Newton's. Historical mathematician Sir Isaac Newton was a great man, revolutionary in the scientific community to say the least, and he loved to read. A book of his could be considered priceless by many, maybe a historical artifact. So what else is there but to have one enter into the gold and silver pawn shop with one? The seller didn't have any kind of papers with it, but despite its restored cover, the old man's book expert did call it out to be a real piece of Sir Newton's collection. However, considering the Godfather mishap, who really knows what to think? If it was real, that $20,000 valuation that the book expert would offer is meaningless, and the mere $7,000 that the old man coughed up for the item was a total ripoff. And that concludes what are 10 times that the Pawn Stars scammed the seller. Feel free to let us know in the comments below what you thought about today's video, and leave a great comment, because one person who leaves a really awesome one is going to have the chance to win a $100 Amazon gift card. So be sure to make your comment great. Also be sure to subscribe for more like this in the future, and have yourselves an excellent day.
Ten things you didn't know about Chum Lee. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Screeny. The Gold and Silver Pawn Shop is pretty much a family business, but after years and years of hanging out around the Harrisons, Chum Lee became a part of the family. Despite his obvious lack of expertise and tendency to mess things up, his bestie, Big Hoss, and his dad, Rick, are still keeping him around. In addition to being a comic relief of the series, he's also a fan favorite, and Pawn Star viewers can't get enough of his epic fails. This popular reality show told us almost everything we need to know about Chum, but there's still a few things he's managed to keep hidden. Let's take a look at 10 things you didn't know about Chum Lee. Before we reveal some of his best hidden secrets, make sure to subscribe to our channel to find out more about your favorite TV stars. Number 10. Rick wants him fired.
You know you're not allowed to play with it.
First off, that is no longer your sword. I sold it.
Chum Lee has millions of fans around the world, but Rick Harrison isn't one of them. Chum's reckless behavior rubs him the wrong way, and it's the root of the animosity between the two men who've never really seen eye to eye. It doesn't take a genius to realize Chum Lee didn't get his job because he's an expert. He's a childhood buddy of Rick's son Corey, and their long-standing friendship is the reason why Chum started working at the store. He was usually behind the counter at the beginning, but once the Harrisons started developing the show, they asked him to join them in front of the camera. If he was working anywhere else, Chum Lee would have been fired by now, but the popularity of Pawn Stars made that practically impossible. He's a reason why fans still tune into the show on a regular basis, and they don't seem to mind the fact that he's completely useless. Rick Harrison probably doesn't feel the same way, but he's stuck with Chum, and he knows firing him wouldn't be good for the show. Number 9. Rule breaker.
Someone pawned the base and set it in the back room, and it had fell, and then I don't know who collected the parts and just put it in a box.
It's no secret Chum likes to mess around behind the scenes, as the Harrisons even caught him in the act. After reviewing video footage from the warehouse, they discovered their clumsy employee was the one responsible for breaking several items while playing around. This wasn't even the first time Chum Lee trashed valuable items, and Rick and his family got used to it over the years. One of his most disastrous missteps took place years before before the show's inception, but his friend Corey still remembers it like it was yesterday. After one customer pawned a valuable bass guitar, Chumlee leaned it against a shelf and walked away, only to see it shattered into pieces after he came back. Instead of admitting what he'd done, Chum put the pieces into the box and pretended like the whole thing never happened. When the guy came back for his item, the Harrisons had to cash out $20,000 because the bass was completely destroyed. Number 8. Big losses.
It's for yourself. Just hang it on your wall.
Sweet.
I swear to God.
Making terrible deals is one of the very few things Chumlee's actually amazing at. His lack of knowledge is usually the main reason why he's buying worthless items, but that's not always the case. Chum is obviously the least experienced of all the Pawn Stars, and it's obvious his co-workers take him as a joke. Even his childhood friend Big Haas often makes fun of his incompetence and perceived lack of intelligence, just like everyone else. And that's the reason why Chum has an enormous hunger for approval and acceptance. And it cost him a lot in the past. Trying to impress his bosses by buying amazing items usually backfired in Chumlee's case. He ended up acquiring fake or worthless artifacts in hope Rick Harrison will give him a pat on the back. But that never happened. Thousands of dollars went down the drain because Chum skipped inviting experts to help him appraise items. He even proved to be incapable of following the simplest directions when Rick gave him a vintage Bob Dylan album and asked him to get his signature. Instead of getting a simple autograph, he made a huge mistake by telling the legendary singer to make it out to Chumlee. Rick was pissed and told him to keep the album because he could no longer sell it to everyone. Number 7. Childhood nickname. Austin Lee Russell is a name barely anyone uses these days to address one of the biggest Pawn Stars. But that wasn't always the case. Chumlee was given his trademark nickname when he was 12, and there's a funny reason why. Little Austin was hanging around one of his friends when his dad joked he looks like the walrus Chumlee from the animated TV series Tennessee Tuxedo. The little boy wasn't offended by his remark and actually thought it was quite cool. As time went by, this nickname kinda stuck, and after a year or two, he started introducing himself as Chumlee. The handle his childhood friend's dad assigned to him turned out to be very catchy, and the lively teen wanted to see who this Chumlee character is. Turns out, he's a TV star with millions in the bank account, so not bad at all. Number 6. Legal trouble. Despite being a fan favorite on Pawn Stars, Chumlee has a pretty lengthy criminal record. He got into some trouble after Las Vegas
Take care.
raided his home after serving a warrant in relation to a sexual assault case. Things have only gotten worse for Chumlee from that point on, because the police ended up finding marijuana, crystal meth, and an unlicensed firearm after searching his Nevada residence.